Well, howdy there, y'all. Yamahsaki here, and welcome back to Yamahsaki RC. And in today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to make some good old-fashioned black powder. Now, I am by no means an expert in the art form of making black powder. In fact, I just started making black powder, about a week ago. But I figured I'd go ahead and show you guys, the process that I'm doing as a beginner to make some black powder. It's quite an art form. There's a lot of little steps, a lot of things you need to take precautions on because this is black powder. It will explode at the smallest amount of sparks. It has a very small ignition point compared to the substitutes you can buy today like Pyrodex. It just can light easier. I have made a couple of batches here. My first batch did not turn out very well. I bought ingredients from a website called Skylighter, and I think they deal in more of pyrotechnics and fireworks stuff. The first batch I made I did based off of the way that the guy does on the Skylighter website, but I ended up trying a more traditional way of making the powder, and it actually worked better. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys the process on how to go about making black powder. Now, there's a good number of steps and procedures that you have to do quite precariously in order to make good black powder. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to start. Now, the traditional ancient old formula that the Chinese came up with when they discovered black powder was 75% potassium nitrate, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur. All you got to do to figure out your formula and how you're going to weigh this stuff out is instead of putting a percentage sign, you put a G sign for grams. You'll do 75 grams of potassium nitrate, 15 grams of charcoal, and 10 grams of sulfur. So I do have my potassium nitrate here, and these are just the basic tools you're going to want to get started, at least for the mixing part, the mixing of all of your ingredients. Get yourself a scale that can read a little bit over 100 grams. This one only weighs 100, but it works just fine. Get yourself a mixing tub that you can pour all of your ingredients in. This is just a little cup that I use to weigh out on the scale. A little spoon. And then we have our potassium nitrate. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to do what we got to do here first. So we got to put our little cup on here. And we got to zero that scale. And I'm going to go ahead and open up our potassium nitrate. And we're going to weigh out 75 grams. Now, you can do bigger batches as long as your scale can read it. You can do 75 times 2 or 75 times 3 or whatever the amount of black powder you want to make. So we are at about 30 grams now. .37. Sometimes it takes a little bit. Honestly, this spoon here works better because it can hold more. So we're at 46. Now we're at 50. 60. We're at 70 grams. And sometimes your potassium nitrate will have big chunks. You can mill it down before you actually add it to the powder. So we're at 72. We're at 30, 74. Be very precise. All right, we're at 75.15, so we're going to shave a tiny bit off the top there. And now we are at 75 grams. I don't know if you guys can read that or not. We're at 75 grams of potassium nitrate. So now, if I get the tripod set back up here for you guys. We'll pour that into our mixing tub. Now we got to do the charcoal. Alright, so I went ahead and I did the charcoal off camera. I figured to speed up the process, I'll do the sulfur because it's only 10 grams. Just don't want to take up too much time showing you guys the measurements. It's pretty self-explanatory. So we got 15 grams of charcoal in there. We got to do the sulfur. And Skylighter, the company I got this from, makes 2 kits of ingredients. One for a ball mill and one for hand milling. Hand milling, you just take a mortar and pestle and you grind it up, get it as fine of a powder as you can. Ball mill is the same thing. It's just a rock tumbler with some specialized media in it to prevent any sparks from forming in the chamber and exploding everything. Their ball mill kit comes with this ingredient called dextrin. Now it's some sort of bonding agent, and I think it's really designed to turn the black powder into more of a form of powder designed for fireworks. Like I said, I made the first batch exactly the way Skylighter said, and it didn't really react when I lit it on fire as traditional black powder should. Because I'm more or less designing this black powder, making this black powder for my muzzle loaders. I just need clean cut original black powder that I can shoot out of them. So if you have dextrin, if you get this kit and you get dextrin, you don't need it. Unless you're doing fireworks stuff, you can do more research and figure out how that stuff reacts different to, different purposes for this black powder. Anyway, let's go ahead and get on to the sulfur. Alright, so last but not least, we're going to do our 10 grams of sulfur. Just take our little spoon here, get 10 grams of sulfur in this guy. Shouldn't take much. Just about there. So we're at 9.5 grams. Now we need a little bit more. 9.7. And we are there. 10 grams. 10 grams going in our tub. And that's all you need to do for the mixing process. At least getting all your ingredients measured out and everything. We'll zero our scale. Turn that puppy off. And now we're ready for our next step, which is getting it in the ball mill. I go ahead and I ball mill my stuff because I don't have a mortar and pestle. I just bought a 3-pound ball mill off of Amazon. Seems to work real well. If you get a larger one, you can make larger batches, but I'm in no hurry to make this stuff at all. Alright, so the next step is we've got to get our ingredients into our ball mill. If you're using a mortar and pestle and hand milling it, you can just go ahead and start doing that. But I'm doing the ball mill method. It's just a V4 ball mill off of Amazon. I've heard just by doing research that the amount of time that you mill your ingredients will determine how well your black powder will perform. So the longer you mill it, the better it's going to come out. The first batch I did alongside with adding the dextrin to the ingredients, I only milled it for about 2 to 4 hours, which I've heard that is sufficient enough, but it really didn't work out for me. So I went ahead and on the second batch I did about 17 hours. And it turned out great. Now, this is the milling chamber. This is where we're going to put our ingredients. Pop this puppy open. I'll show you the media. Now, the media that you use, at least what's been traditionally used, is lead ball. Ooh, look at the powder coming off of that. So what I got down in there is a whole bunch of lead balls. And that is what is going to help mix all those ingredients up and get them crunched down to the finest powder that they can possibly be. And then we will move on to the next step. So we'll pour all that stuff in there. Now it's also been said that you want about 2/3 of the volume of your chamber to be filled up with your ingredients, and the other third be filled up with your lead ball media. Oh man, sometimes this guy's hard to get on there. There we go. So put that on there. Tighten that up. And let's go hook this bad boy in. Alrighty, so we'll put this bad boy right there. Turn on our ball mill. 1 day, speed 4. And it'll start to mill the powder. Now what's going to come out of this mill is what's going to be known as mill dust. Really, really fine powder. Really, really flammable because of how fine it is. So you really want to be careful after you take your powder out of your mill. So I will see you guys tomorrow after this thing has been milling overnight, and we will move on to the next step. Alright, so this thing's been milling for about 10 hours now. I'm going to go ahead and take our media, shake it around, because sometimes it likes to clump around. And then we're just going to leave it for a minute, and then we're going to go ahead, we're going to dump it, we're going to separate our media from our mill dust. And that is what this screen is for. And there's another use for this screen. It'll be coming up real soon. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead. I'm going to dump our powder in there. That's what the powder looks like. I'm just going to dump it in that screen. Make sure we get every last grain of powder that we can possibly get. Just mix that around. And after that, should have some nice black powder. Alright, so now we got to make a big grease ball with our powder. The way we do that, I pour all my stuff into a water mixing bucket. I'm going to take some warm water, do almost 2 teaspoons of water. There we go. If we need to add more, we can go ahead and do that. But then we just want to start mixing that powder out in there, getting it all wet, and pretty soon we should have a grease ball. Make sure you scrape the stuff off the sides, get it all mixed up in there. If you need to add some more water, just add a tiny micro amount. That'll do it. And we keep mixing until we can get a ball of powder. Just scrape it all up, kind of form a nice grease ball. As you can see how it's kind of clumping up in there. That's what we want. That is what we want. And you can see, kind of needs to be shiny. You want that to have a sheen to it, that ball of powder. So this one still needs a tiny bit more water. So add just a little bit more. That'll do. And we keep mixing. And if you don't get it all, that's alright. This is black powder. There's not much science to it. Just depends on what you want to do. Alright. We just about have our grease ball. You can see that there. That is exactly what we're looking for. Alright, so now we are finally on to screening. And after you make that grease ball, you want to be kind of quick. So I just have a tray with some parchment paper. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to grate this like cheese. Just going to press it up against that screen. And this, what we're making here, is 1F powder. Really coarse black powder. This is probably what they would have most likely used in the cannons, because it's such a big powder. You can see we're just kind of getting all that pushed through there, just like so. Trying to get every last grain we can get out of that ball. And I still have some residue from the last batches I've made, so some hard stuff in there, but no biggie. You can see I kind of got almost all of it. And there is our 1F black powder right there. We'll just keep screening it a little bit, trying to get all that stuff off of that screen. And I'm going to keep working at this for a good couple of minutes, just until I feel happy with the results that I got. So, stay tuned, y'all. Alright, so after weighing and mixing our ingredients, ball milling it, turning it into a grease ball, and then cheesing it, as I like to call it, into 1F black powder, the only other step we have to do for now is take this out somewhere where there's a good amount of sunlight, because this stuff dries relatively quickly because you don't put a lot of water in it. And then once it's dry, it'll turn really hard. All the granules will turn fairly hard. And after that, all we got to do is sift it and screen it into finer powders. And after that, you let it dry a little bit longer. You got yourself some homemade black powder. Alright, so this stuff has had a little bit of time to cook out in the sun. As you can see, it's all nice and hard. So now what we got to do is we got to take our different screens and we just got to screen it out to different Fs. We started, this is 1F, we're going to go to 2F, we're going to go to 3F, and then our last is going to be priming powder. And that is what you would put in the priming pan on your flintlock rifle, your blunderbuss, or your pistol, whatever you got. So what I like to do is I have 2 trays now, just parchment paper. You can use tinfoil. Some people use tinfoil. What I like to do, this isn't a necessary step, but just to get more of a variety of granulations of powder, I just take my fist, make a fist, and I just kind of crunch it down a little bit. And that's going to mill it, that's just going to hand mill it a little bit more to where you can just get more of a variety of powders out of your batch. So we'll take our powder, we'll slowly just put it right up in that screen, just like so. And now all we got to do is we got to sift it. You can see it's going to let all the smaller stuff go through those holes, and all that bigger stuff is going to stay up top there. And use your hand, make sure you get as much of the granulations as you can out. And sometimes I've got to go back and forth and dump all the powder back into the original tray, crunch it down some more. So that's what we're going to do here. Make sure not to spill all your powder everywhere. It's kind of a tricky job. Just crunch it down some more. Try and get all those small pieces of powder get all broke up. And we'll go back and we'll do it all over again. And I'm just going to repeat this process until I have a good amount of 2F black powder. Just like so. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing this for a little bit, guys. I might do one more crunch on the 1F powder just to get a little bit more 2F. We'll go to 3F, and then we'll do our priming powder, and that will be it for this video. So now we're going to go from 2F to 3F. It's just the same procedure. Take our powder, put it in the sifter, sift it out. And as I've stated before, the original recipe, the amount in the recipe, I guess I should say, produces a fairly small amount of powder. So do this at varying degrees if that is your prerogative. I just like making it small batches at a time. It's just easier. I got to do it more often, but I'd rather get everything as right as I possibly can the first time, not having to go back a second time. Just sift all that 2F down through that 3F screen. And then after the 3F, it's just the fine priming powder. So that's all we're going to get out of that bunch. Keep it on the parchment paper the best we can. So there's our 2F. Here's our 3F. Not a lot of 2F that I'm going to get out of this, but it's something at least. Let's get it all organized here. So there is our 3F. So now we're just going to take, and I have my jar here for 2F. So now I'm just going to take my 2F powder and dump it in there. So we got 1F down, 2F down. Now we need to go to the fine screen and make some priming powder. So last but not least, from 3F to fine priming powder. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to dump some of this 3F into the funnel already. It's still going to have some fine powder in it, but I have a jar that's too small to fit all of this powder. So now I'm going to be very careful. Get that powder into the sieve like that. Then we'll do the same deal. Sift that powder. And you see that is some fine stuff right there. That is some fine priming powder right there. It's a very simple process to make black powder. It just takes a little bit of time and a little bit of practice. But like I said, I've only been doing it for about a week or so, and the process, once you do it a couple of times, it becomes second nature. If you're a little bit lenient, like me. So I think that is all we are going to get out of this bunch. Which that is the perfect amount of priming powder. That'll probably fill up my little jar of priming powder. Just dump that stuff back in there. that stuff off. Set that over there. Get our 3Fs in storage. And I am going to let these jars breathe for a little while. I do it every time I make a new batch. I let them breathe. I leave the caps open. And after that, it's ready to use. So I'm going to get all this stuff cleaned up and we'll get this video closed out. So I hope this video was informative for you guys, for any of you out there that are wanting to, you know, maybe try making some black powder someday, you know. I never saw myself ever making black powder in my life, but here I am. Really, you don't need a lot of tools to make black powder. You need very little. It's a very basic procedure to making it. It's just a time-consuming deal. But once you get it down, you'll be set for life. If you ever need black powder or whatever you need this stuff for, you know. I hope it serves you well. This is just my method, so you guys can experiment and do your own methods. Like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm just a beginner here. I have no idea what I'm doing. I just figured out what works for me so far. So I hope you enjoyed this video, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment for more content. And Yamahsaki out. We'll see y'all later.